Hi, Claudia here from Create with Claudia. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I'm going to be going over 16 ideas that you can use when you're trying to get rid of some of that focal fabric you bought for a special project, or for that matter, any fabric that you bought. But you know that focal fabric is that fabric you buy for a specific project. Like, let me just show you. Here, I bought this fruit fabric years ago, and I had all intentions to make this gorgeous, I had in my head this whole design with lots of oranges and reds and greens, and it never materialized, and I had that fabric for a long time. Here's another one. These are some umbrellas, and I thought, what fun would this be to make a big quilt based around those umbrellas, that fabric? And again, I never ended up using it. So I decided to come up with this list of 16 ideas for you to help you get rid of some of that extra stash that you just know you're never going to use again. I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. And I am on social media at Create with Claudia, where I post things daily, all sorts of projects and things like that. So thanks so much for watching, and enjoy the video. Number one is keep it for later. I know that sounds really simple, but sometimes I look at my stash and I'm like, oh, I haven't used that in I don't know how many years, I need to get rid of it. And that's not always the case. Save it. I mean, that's how we build up our stashes. This fabric I have had, I don't know how long, a long time. And I just can't bear to part with it. I love it. And one day I will make a quilt with it. That's my New Year's resolution in March. But yeah, keep them for later. So that's number one. Number two, make some pillowcases. When my daughter was younger, she loved fun pillowcases, so I would make her every once in a while a pillowcase with some fun fabric that I knew that I wasn't ever going to use, that I bought for a project. The other thing is there are charities that take pillowcases for kids in hospitals. I know our local children's hospital took pillowcases, and I made some for them a number of years ago. Number three, make a scrap quilt. They are my all-time favorite quilt, and if you look at my work on social media, you'll see that I post a lot of scrap quilts. I mean, I think the scrappier the better. I have been trying to branch out and maybe not use as many scraps. Here's an old one. This one I made probably over maybe 20 years ago or so, and it's all made up of about 1-inch pieces. They were at 1 1/4 when I cut them, if I'm recalling correctly. So this has tons and tons of scraps. It's a great way to use up that fabric that you don't really care, maybe that you don't care for, or that you bought for an earlier project. When they're real small like this, you don't see that pattern as much, so you can sort of pick out the color instead of the pattern. Number four is donate fabric. That is a great way to get rid of fabric that you just don't want to use anymore. I know earlier in the year when I was making masks, the organization I was making them for got a huge stack of fabric that was donated to them, and they gave me a bunch of it, and I was able to make some masks from that. So that's a good thought. Is a good thing to do is to donate that fabric. Number five is make a stuffed animal like this cute little kitty cat here. They're lots of fun to make. They're usually fairly easy to make, and they're a great use for that fun focal fabric that you bought that you just don't want anymore. Number six is probably my favorite way, or one of my favorite ways of using up fabric that I don't want to use anymore. It's a great way to bust your stash, and that is using it on the back of your quilts. A lot of times people don't look at the back of the quilts, or they don't look at them as often, I should say. And for example, this is a scrap quilt on the front, and this is the back, which you can see I used all sorts of cuts. I got rid of a lot of fabric that way. It's just a good use for those fabrics, unwanted fabrics. Number seven is another really worthy way, and another one of my favorites, and that's making quilts for a cause, or donating charity quilts. There are so many organizations that take quilts, and if you have fabric maybe that you got tired of, or whatever the reason is, they're a great way that's a great way to use up that fabric. Number eight is making some kids' clothes. I don't have any little kids anymore, so I don't do that anymore. But there are some really cute patterns out there, and kids seem to love some of those really fun focal fabrics, like that cat fabric I showed you earlier. Little girls love the little flowers, that sort of thing. So kids' clothes are a good idea. Number nine is make some cloth napkins. I know that sounds sort of basic, but sometimes you have that focal fabric that you're just in love with, but you just don't know what to do with. And this is a fun way to do it. You can cut out your squares and make a really narrow hem, and you have some really fancy cloth napkins. Number 10, make some table runners. Table runners are nice, quick makes. They're usually not, well, they're always not as big as a quilt, but they're easy to make usually, especially one like this that's just strips, and they are a great way to use up some of that focal fabric that you bought that you're not going to use. Number 11 goes along with number 10, and that is coasters. Make coasters. They're always handy. They make great gifts, and if you have some nice fabric sitting around that you don't want anymore, Great way to use it up. Number 12 is to make some items for around the house. For example, I got this for Christmas from my mother-in-law. She made this for me with some big navy and yellow and white focal fabric. It is a bowl cozy. I absolutely love this thing, and we use it all the time. I use it a lot more than I originally thought I would. It's just really handy, but there are all kinds of little things. If you look around on the internet for patterns and things, you can make all sorts of things for around the house from that kind of fabric. Number 13 is something that's lots of fun. This is actually something my mother got for me at a craft fair. So somebody used this absolutely adorable flip-flop fabric, and it's a little bag. It's a little cosmetic pouch. This is so handy, and it's a really fun and useful way to use up some of that fabric. Number 14 is a really fun way to use up some of that focal fabric. Usually, not always, but a lot of times a focal fabric will have a big picture in it or something like that, like a flower or a train or what, it could be anything. For example, on this quilt, I made this for my daughter when she was born, and there's some little babies here, and I fussy cut out the one in the little blue dress. So that is a good way to use up some of that fabric, and you can put it in maybe a child's quilt, an I Spy quilt, that sort of thing. Number 15, make tester blocks. Especially if you make a lot of quilts or you're trying out a new pattern, I always like to test out a block if I'm not sure how to make it. And a lot of times I will use that fabric that I don't want to use anymore. So that is a great use for getting rid of some of that fabric. Last but not least, number 16, and that is sell that fabric. If you really don't want it anymore, there are a lot of places where you can sell fabric and make a little extra cash on the side if you're lucky enough that somebody buys it. But selling your fabric is another great option. So there you have it. There are my 16 ways to get rid of that focal fabric that you bought that you just don't want anymore. I hope that you found some helpful tips in there. I hope you've gotten some good ideas. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I am on social media at Create with Claudia. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.